Okay. Welcome to Conservation University Brown Bag webinar. This is part of a cooperative extension effort between the City of Edmond Water Resources Department and the Oklahoma State University Extension ThinkWater program. And my name is Brenda Sanders, and I'm part of the ThinkWater group, and I'll be moderating today. We're really glad that you could join us for this. It's an exciting topic when we're talking about ways to conserve water. And today we're going to be talking about rainwater harvesting and also gray water use. And we have a couple of excellent panelists lined up to discuss these topics in Jordan Peebles and Dr. Sergio Abbott. And first off, Jordan, are you ready? I was going to introduce you, but I want to make sure you were ready.
I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay, well, just a little bit about Jordan. She received her bachelor's degree in geology from Georgia Southern University and completed graduate work at Clemson University in hydrogeology. Then she joined the City of Edmond in 2011 as a water quality specialist, where she administers the, I'm going to shorten this, but the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System program for the City of Edmond. And on top of that, she has served as the event coordinator for this Edmond's annual rain barrel and compost bin distribution event for the last 6 years. And to date, she has helped distribute 643 rain barrels and 198 composters to homeowners through this event that they hold every year, which is pretty cool. And one last thing before she gets started is if you have questions for Jordan, just type those into either the chat window or the question and answer window, and we'll hold those and then address those at the end for presentation. And anyway, welcome, Jordan, and thanks for talking to us. And I will stop sharing and let you go ahead and start.
Thank you, Brenda.
And also, if you can't hear any of us, somebody tell us to raise the volume or something like that.
Yes, please let me know. Okay, can you see my screen okay, Brenda?
Yes, looks great.
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you for having me talk today. So rainwater harvesting, rain barrels, this is a topic very near and dear to my heart. So I'm always excited at the opportunity to talk about this, especially with like-minded folks. So as Brenda said, I do work for the City of Edmond and our Stormwater Quality Division. So this is this topic we do quite a bit with residents on, public outreach, and we work really closely with our water resources department on these kinds of topics, and have I've even sat in on these classes that they've offered, these Conservation University classes. I've sat in myself on these topics, so I'm really excited that y'all are attending today. So we are entering into our spring season here in Oklahoma. And if you are attending this seminar, then you're already interested in water conservation, and you want to learn how to save water and still have a very beautiful landscape, even during drought conditions. And this is a really great place to start. So I do want to begin by saying, if you haven't worked with rain barrels before, don't be intimidated by the installation or the maintenance. It's a very simple process, and we're going to go over all the details today. And of course, if you have any questions, definitely let me know at the end of the seminar. So to begin, what is rainwater harvesting? So at its simplest definition, all we're doing is you're just collecting and then storing rainwater for reuse at a future date. And here in Oklahoma, we have ups and downs, we have drought conditions. So if you can collect and store rainwater during our rainy seasons, then you'll be prepared during drought conditions to keep your landscape on your home or at your business lush and thriving. So just a few of the benefits of actually participating with rainwater harvesting. First of all, it's free. It is just falling from the sky. You don't have to pay for it. It's also going to help reduce flooding and property erosion. I know a lot of people here in Oklahoma, a lot of times, we do have flooding issues. So this can kind of help, retain some of that initial flush from a storm and help protect your property. As with that, you can also protect local water quality. People reducing erosion. A lot of that sediment is not going into our creeks and rivers. It's not going into our storm drains. All the fertilizers and other chemicals that we put on our lawns, will not be going into our creeks and rivers. So it can really help protect our water quality. Can reduce your utility bills because you won't be using as much water. And of course, reduce your dependence on treated municipal water because you're using your free water. Some of the uses you can use from the water that you've harvested and collected, you can irrigate your lawns and your gardens. You can wash your car with it. You can rinse your garden tools. That's something that I do quite a bit as a gardener. And also for those of you that are really interested in compost too, that's another side of this. With compost, you need to keep that sweet spot, between the dry and the moisture. So if if your compost is a little bit dry, you can use your harvested rainwater to bring that moisture level back up in your compost. So I want to talk a little bit about a couple of the different options that you can use for an actual container. So from the pictures on the screen, so we have on the left-hand side, this is a 55-gallon rain barrel. So this is probably your most common option. It's kind of the introductory level, just to let kind of people get their feet wet, so to speak, with harvesting. And for the purpose of this seminar, that's really what we're going to be talking about today is the 55-gallon rain barrel. But I also wanted to show you a couple of other options. So as you get a little bit more adventurous, perhaps you want to store more, rainwater in the future. The next step up would be what's called an IBC tote or an intermediate bulk container. And these in the photo, they're about 275 gallons. The problem with these is they are actually a clear container. So in the picture, you can see they actually have, you can paint them, or these have been wrapped in a black tarp. And the reason you want to do that is because they're clear with the rain barrels, if they're within the sun, and they're also, potentially getting some nutrients from the roof or from your gutter system, and it can encourage the growth of algae. And so that's not something that you want to have in your rain barrel. So if you keep it covered or paint them black, that'll reduce the chance of that. But these are quite a bit larger than your typical rain barrel. So these would be a really good option if you wanted to increase the amount that you're retaining. And then the last picture, this is actually at Bickham Park here in Edmond. This was done as a collaboration by building a xeriscape garden, and these cisterns were meant to assist with the irrigation of that xeriscape garden. So each one of these is 1,100 gallons for a total of 2,200 gallons. And these are really like a rainwater collection system. So this is connected to the irrigation, a little bit more expensive, a lot more working parts to it, more of like a commercial type application, but there have been homeowners that have elected to go this route. So these are some of the options, but for the rest of the talk, we're just going to be focusing on the 55-gallon option. So I wanted to kind of go over some of the features of a typical 55-gallon rain barrel. And we'll start at the lid because that is actually where the water is going to be entering your rain barrel from your gutter system. So with the options that the city of Edmond, we partnered with a company called Upcycle Products out of Illinois. And with their barrels, their lid will screw off and on, very easy to remove and maintain your barrel that way. What they've done is that they have drilled several holes through the rain barrel at the top, and that is actually allowing the water to drain in from your downspout or your rain chain, however you're directing your water into the top of the barrel. And then the top also has, once you screw it off, there's an interior screen that it's going to keep out debris and help reduce mosquitoes from entering your rain barrel. And the great thing about the screen is because it's an independent piece. So let's say you have something that falls in there, or some children are having some fun and it gets damaged, you can easily go to your local hardware store and you can replace that. You'll just use that as a template and you can just cut it to size and you're good to go. The next feature I want to talk about is the overflow fitting. So the overflow is a really important, since the overflow fitting is located at the top of the barrel. So as your barrel is filling up, you want to make sure that water level stays below the top of your rain barrel, and the overflow will take any of that excess water, and you can connect a hose to that and you can direct it into your garden bed or across your lawn, wherever you want to direct that excess runoff. But the key is you really want to direct it away from your home's foundation. That's why Upcycle has added that fixture, that fitting to their barrels to allow you to direct any overflow away from your home's foundation. The next feature is the linking hose. So as you saw with the cisterns example, there was more than one. This fitting will allow you to connect multiple rain barrels together. Since they're connected at the bottom, they will all fill up together. And some rain barrels, you'll see they have the linking fitting at the top. So one barrel will fill up first and then so on and so on if you connect more than one together. The key with this fixture is when you start thinking about winterizing your rain barrel, you really want to keep this. This is just a little screw cap on it until you actually connect a hose. But you'll want to keep that fitting, that screw cap off during the winter, and that will allow water to exit your rain barrel during any storms. And then if we happen to have, a quick freeze one night and you're not really thinking about your rain barrel at the time, the water will be able to exit and the little water that is left in the barrel will be able to expand without cracking the barrel. And that has definitely happened. The next feature is going to be our ball valve. So this is also located at the bottom of your barrel, and you can also connect a garden hose or drip tubing to the ball valve. So this actually does have an on-off switch. So you just leave it open or closed depending on what you're wanting to work on. I know a lot of people, they'll turn it on and then they'll forget to turn it back off before the next rain event, and they come out and their rain barrel is empty. So just make sure you keep in mind if you're done using your barrel for the day, make sure you turn that back off. Now, like the linking fitting, you also want to keep this one open during the winter, so that way any accumulated rainfall can exit the barrel without damaging it. Now with Upcycle's barrels, these are gravity-fed barrels. They do not have an interior pump. So in order for these to really function and for you to get the right head pressure, you'll want to make sure that these are raised up on some type of pedestal. The pedestal can be wood. Upcycle offers a wooden pedestal as part of their available products. And for every foot that you raise your rain barrel, you'll get about a 0.4 to 0.5 PSI of actual head pressure. As for the base, you can do a lot of different options. It can be wood, it can be decorative pavers, it can be stone. But the key for is that you really want it to be very level, you want it to be stable and sturdy enough to support the rain barrel, because when it's full, a rain barrel can weigh anywhere between like 400 or 500 pounds. So we definitely don't want the rain barrel to fall over on any children that are playing, on your pet, or you if you're out there working in the yard. So tamp down the ground and really prepare that surface so that way the rain barrel won't shift and fall over. And that can also damage your barrel in the winter if it's starting to freeze. That additional impact when it falls will easily crack it. So now that we've kind of talked about the features of the rain barrel, we're going to move and we're going to talk about the actual components of a rainwater harvesting system, the steps that you're taking to decide, where do you place your rain barrel, how do you decide, the size of it, how are you going to get the rainwater from your roof to the rain barrel. We'll go over all of those different topics. Just for time, we're going to cover just catchment, conveyance, and overflow. The storage is kind of related to catchment. Once you determine the square footage and how you're going to feed it, That'll help determine your container. So we won't go over that today. And then the outlet, that's really just connecting the hose to the ball valve, or if you want to just forget the hose and just use a watering can, that's pretty much what that aspect is talking about. So let's talk about catchment first. So in the image, that's actually my house, and I wanted to take you guys through a little brief calculation, so that way you can kind of determine the square footage and how much rainfall that would actually contribute to a rain barrel or 2 rain barrels. So on the west side of my house, I just have this like triangular shaped face, and it's about 580 square feet. Now there's a really simple equation to help you calculate how many gallons would be generated by a specific section of your roof. So it's the equation is just gallons equals 0.6, which is just a conversion factor. It just makes all of the units come together, and you'll multiply that by the amount of precipitation, and then multiply that again by the square footage of the area. So on the image in the square with surrounded by yellow, you'll see, so I'm just going with a basic 1-inch storm, which here in the spring and summer in Oklahoma is pretty typical, and multiply that by the square footage of my roof line, and I get 348 gallons. So during a storm, if it's going to be a 1-inch kind of storm, that section of my roof is going to generate 348 gallons of rainwater. So we've been talking about a 55-gallon rain barrels, and so you can see just with one storm how quickly that rain barrel is going to fill up. People are always surprised, and you think 55 gallons is a lot, but once you really start thinking and doing the calculations, it's going to fill up just like that, and you will have tons of consistent rain during the rainy season. And with Edmond, we actually receive 36 inches of rainfall each year on average. So you can just think over the span of the year how much rainfall your roof actually generates, and participating in rainwater harvesting, you're going to be able to gather up to, my house is about 2,000 square feet. So there's like a potential of 45,000 gallons of reusable water that I could access every year. So now we're going to move to conveyance. So once you know where on your home that you actually want to place your rain barrel, how are you going to get it there? Now, if you have a gutter system, there's 2 options you can really select from to direct the water from your gutter system into the rain barrel. So the first one is actually installing a flex hose, whether it's a rigid flex hose, as you can see in option A, or a flexible elbow, as you see in option B. Both options, it actually requires you to cut your downspout. And so once you place your rain barrel next to the downspout that you want to locate it next to, you'll just look at the height and you'll cut your downspout at that height, a little bit above your rain barrel, to give you some time to direct your downspout extensions. You can even place the flexible one around the corner. If you want it kind of out of the sight of the street, you can do that. And then you'll just direct that right into the top of your rain barrel. Now, if the idea of cutting your gutter makes you nervous, there is another option, and it's called a devoter kit. There's a lot of different options of devoters. They sell them on Amazon. You can find them at Home Depot or Lowe's or your hardware store. So this particular one that I'm showing you, it does require you to drill into your downspout, and then the center picture, it's very flexible. So you just kind of squeeze the little rubber piece and fit it into the hole that you drilled. And then it will open up once it's inside, and the fan will collect the rainwater while allowing some to still pass through your gutter as normal. And then there's a connection hose that goes from your gutter into your rain barrel. So once your rain barrel actually fills up during a storm, once that pressure, it'll get reversed, and the water will be diverted back into your downspout to discharge normally the way you had it before. So a lot of people, this just kind of depends on how they want to direct water on their property. If you want If you have an existing gutter system and you really needed to direct it out, if it's already connected to the street or to a pop-up system elsewhere in your lawn, this might be the best option for you. But if you don't mind just having it discharged through the rain barrel, then you can do the flexible hose option too. So earlier we were talking about making sure you're directing any discharge from the rain barrel away from your property. So these images are kind of an example of the consequences of that. So this area of the home is receiving a little bit too much water for this kind of size of a rain barrel, and they don't have any other method of really directing it away from their foundation. So all of this rainwater is being, on the left picture, is going right at their foundation, potentially causing some erosion. If there's a basement in this house, you potentially have issues with flooding. So this is not something that we really want to see. But the picture on the right, they have a larger discharge overflow hose, and they're directing it properly away from their home's foundation. So now I kind of wanted to go through a couple of common questions that I get from our residents here in Edmond. We have a lot of different types of communities here in Edmond, and some homes actually don't have any gutter systems, but they still want to participate in the program. They still want to enjoy a rain barrel and get into composting and all these different activities. So that they are asking, well, if I don't have a gutter system, can I still have a rain barrel? And of course you can. So one option that you can use is something called a rain chain. You can replace your downspout with a rain chain. Even if you have a gutter system, you can replace your downspout with a rain chain. So they work whether you have a gutter system or you don't. And that will help guide rainwater down from your roof edge into a rain barrel. There's a couple different options. So rain chains are they're just a series of connected cups or rings. They come in all kinds of different shapes. They'll come in tulips. I've seen fish, or they're just rings. They can be very simple or very ornate. It just depends. But as you can see from the photos on the left, the far left photo, this home doesn't have any gutter system whatsoever. But the two on the right, they do, but they're still being able to use a rain chain. They can be really beautiful. Even in the winter, we've seen some really interesting ice designs on these in the wintertime during a freeze. Now, with the picture on the left, so that's kind of a flat roof. It's not really channelizing the water in any way. So usually if you want to use a rain chain on a home that does not have a gutter system, you want to locate your barrel and the rain chain where your eaves are coming together. So it's going to channelize the water in some way. And then the rain chains actually operate on surface adhesion. That's how it collects the water and directs it to the rain chain down to the rain barrel. So you'll just kind of walk around your home during a rain event, see where you're having the most runoff from your roof, and that would be where you would want to place your rain chain and your rain barrel. The second question that we get, and actually this has been more of an issue recently, here in Oklahoma, we had a major freeze event in about mid-February of this year. And immediately after that, we started seeing warmer temperatures and everybody's starting to think about gardening, and they go out to check their rain barrel, and we had quite a few that had this happen where they actually cracked. So winterizing rain barrels is really similar to having to winterize your irrigation systems, or protecting your spigots that are on the outside of your home. They can be affected the same way. So there's a couple of steps to really help you out with that. Step one, you just want to drain all of the water out of your rain barrel. You can start doing this in late fall before we start anticipating a lot of those freezes. I know last year we kind of got caught by one in October. So really around October is when you want to start thinking about winterizing your irrigation and your rain barrels. You also want to remove any attached hoses. So if you have multiple rain barrels that are linked together, or you have a diverter kit with a hose going from your gutter to your rain barrel, you'll want to take those off. And then also we discussed taking off the screw cap for your linking fitting, and then also opening the ball valve. That way, if there is any water that that's going to be discharging from your rain barrel, it has that opportunity to do so. This picture was actually given to me by one of our residents, and she gave me permission to share this with you guys today. And with our vendor, so with Upcycle products, they do offer a 1-year warranty on their rain barrels, but if the rain barrel isn't properly winterized, it's going to void the 1-year warranty on the rain barrel. So we're going to try to make more of an effort to make sure people are aware that don't forget your rain barrel in the winter time. Make sure you take these steps to protect it. So we did mention that we do have our annual event every year. So we've been doing this since 2016, and we've been working with the same vendor for all 6 years. And our event is coming up in just a couple of weeks. So our event is going to be Saturday, April 24th. It's from 8 to noon. And it's going to be at our municipal complex at I-35 and Covell Road. The address is 2012 Old Timbers Drive. We do have a couple of deadlines that will hit before that. So our vendor offers 2 options for ordering your rain barrels. You can have an online option, which is just kind of like checking out on Amazon. And that deadline is Sunday, April 18th. But we also have a mail-in option. So there's an actual form you can print out and make your selections, and then you send that with your check to Upcycle. And they will need to have those forms by Wednesday, April 14th. And then we also have a web page that we've developed. It's edmond.ok.com/rain barrels. There's a ton of information on this web page. We have frequently asked questions, which keeps creeping up every year. I think there's like 30 question and answers available there. We have the manuals, we have care and use guides. We have event information. There's a map showing your route for pickup. There are videos, training videos, brochures, even information about composting if you're interested in that. So if you're really interested in picking up a rain barrel this year, make sure you check out the webpage and take a look at all the resources there for you. So as Brenda said, we've been doing this since 2016. This is just kind of a breakdown of how many rain barrels we've distributed to our residents every year. It's been a really popular program, and I'm definitely looking forward to continuing this program. And just to give you guys an idea of what's available, I've shown you a couple of pictures of the terracotta rain barrel and before, but we actually have 4 different colors of rain barrels that are available this year. So there's blue, terracotta, the black, and then also the gray. So the terracotta looks really great with brick, but the blue is a popular one if you are interested in painting, because it you can act as a background as a sky, but the black and the gray are really popular as well. And then Upcycle also offers quite a few accessories to purchase with your rain barrel. The wooden pedestals you see in the photos, but they offer the flex elbows. They also offer the diverter kits, the linking hoses, and then if you want to decorate the outside of your barrel with vegetation, they have a netting that slides over the barrel. So if you want to have ivy kind of grow over it, you can do that with that product. And then they also have plant hangers if you want to hang potted plants from your rain barrel. So there's a lot of different options. That is all I have for you today, and I would be very happy to take any questions.
So thanks, Jordan. That was really informative, and actually, I was excited to find out that you didn't have to have gutters to have a rain barrel. So.
I've had a lot of people be very happy that they could do that. And they love the idea of the rain chains.
So one question was, do you have to be a resident of the city of Edmond to be able to take advantage of this?
Not at all. So there's actually most of the metro cities in Oklahoma are participating in this. So with Midwest City, Oklahoma City, Stillwater, Norman, Midwest City. So we are just having a lot of different points for pickup. So one is more convenient for you. You can, if you live in Edmond, but you work in Midwest City and you're going to be over that direction on that pickup, then you can order with Midwest City. So Yeah, it's entirely at your convenience which city you want to buy from.
Okay, awesome. And then one final thing, some states have regulations, I think, of where you can't harvest rainwater, but there are no such regulations in Oklahoma, correct?
Yeah, at this time, we're not like, the states out further west where they do have those kinds of regulations. At this time, Edmond and Oklahoma does not. The only thing I would caution people about is maybe talking with your HOA first. There are some HOAs that, although they might allow rain barrels, they don't want them visible from the road. Some of those are in their covenants. So we have had some residents that have bought one and then been unable to use it because their HOAs don't allow them. So before you order, I would check your HOA bylaws and covenants and just make sure that that you're able to have one and you can put it where you want.
All right. Well, thanks again. That was great. And I guess maybe I'll share my screen.
Yeah, I'll unshare mine.
There we go.
Brenda, there was a question.
Okay.
Draining in the winter is extremely important. The freeze in October destroyed my undrained water collection system while I was out of town. That's just a message, just a FYI. So,
Well, but yes, just to emphasize that point, extremely. And yeah, a lot of times we don't think about doing those things quite at the beginning of October, and that did catch us off guard this year. So, all right. Well, so next we're moving to gray water, and we have Dr. Sergio Abbott, and he is the state specialist for on-site wastewater treatment systems in the state of Oklahoma. He got his master's and doctoral degrees in soil science at the North Carolina State University, where he specialized in environmental soil physics and hydropedology. He's conducted research and published scientific articles concerning the effects on nitrogen, phosphorus, and bacteria in soil systems. And as a state specialist, he oversees the statewide extension effort geared towards addressing training and educational needs of various stakeholder groups in the on-site wastewater industry. He also organizes Oklahoma's annual on-site wastewater conference, and Dr. Abbott is a faculty member at the Department of Plant and Soil Sciences here at Oklahoma State University, where he also teaches various undergraduate and graduate level soil science courses. He also serves on the board of directors for the National On-Site Wastewater Recycling Association. And Dr. Abbott, are you
I'm good to go.
Awesome. Very good. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much. If you could unshare your screen so that I can do mine, right? Okay, there we go. I'll share my screen. Thank you for the kind introduction. Again, I'm Sergio Abbott. I'm from the Orange School here in OSU, all right, in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I have to start with a confession here. Unlike Jordan, who actually does the rainwater harvesting, what she talked about, I have not actually installed gray water systems, or I don't use gray water systems. I wish I do, but the closest that I've been to gray water is I observed how these things operate in a couple of houses when I traveled west. Okay, so thanks again for the invite. Thanks, Brenda, for the invite. So the topic is gray water use and rules. So there are keywords in the title, of course. We have gray water. So what about gray water are we going to talk about in the next 20-25 minutes? We're going to talk about what it is and how much of it do we produce every day. We're also going to talk a little bit about how we harvest and pre-treat it. In terms of uses, we're just going to talk about, hey, what does the law permit in terms of what can it be used for? Talking about the laws, we're going to talk about regulations, specifically here in Oklahoma, that govern the use of utilization, collection, and of course dispersal of gray water. So beginning with what it is, Well, here are some definitions. I want to point you to the red colors here in gray water, right? Some uses the spelling A, some uses the spelling E. They're the same thing. I've seen a lot of definitions of what gray water is, and this is the one that I use. Gray water is a type of used water that is produced by household, which includes water from the following: dishwashers, washing machines, sinks, showers, and bathtub. I actually have asterisks in there because in some definitions, they don't use the used water. They call it wastewater. Including the state of Oklahoma, we actually consider it as wastewater. In some definitions, they do not include dishwater, water from dishwashers, and sinks from kitchens. But all of the definitions that I've seen actually excludes water produced by toilet. I guess that's the that's overarching part of the definition. So I, as a state specialist for on-site wastewater, I actually deal with black water. That's sewage. But there are other kinds of water that comes, or in our houses, we have the clean water that comes from the faucets, from springs, of course. And we have, hey, in the middle, we have gray water, water that is without those very toxic chemicals and is not exposed to human excrement. Okay, I want to use questions as we move along. So let's ask the next question. How much gray water do we produce, or gray water that we could have used, could have reused? And it really depends upon what do we mean by we. We can look at we as us, homeowners or households, or we can also consider we as the state. So we'll talk about both. So in terms of how much, let's run the numbers here. Okay, so for households, there is an estimate by the USGS, the United States Geological Service, the estimate for the amount of water that is used or could be attributed to each individual in the United States. And the estimate is between 70 to 100 gallons per person per day. Oftentimes we don't use that, but in the services that we enjoy, in the products that we buy, there's water use that is involved with that. So 70 to 100 gallons. For the sake of this mathematics that we're going to do in the next few minutes, I'm just going to use 80 gallons per person per day, at least in Oklahoma. And let's assume a household of 4 adults. So 4 adults in a household, so 80 gallons per adult or per person. Multiply that by 4, so that, okay, that's a good estimate, 320 gallons per day. That's actually a fair estimate of the amount of water. And the next question is, what is the breakdown of these, the water that people use? And here's data from the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Actually, 24% of that water that could be attributed to each person every day is used to flush toilets. 20% shower, 19% faucets. The other major use is clothes and washer. That's around 17%. So if we consider a 4 adult household here in Oklahoma to use 320 gallons per day, what is 24% of that? 24% is 77 gallons. Hey, that's actually clean water that has gone through our water treatment system, but we just use it to flush stuff. 77 gallons per day. Well, that's not part of gray water, so we're not going to talk about that. That is actually a big chunk of what I talk about, but not today. 20% of showers, that's 64 gallons, 19% faucets, that's 61 gallons. Washers, clothes washers specifically, that is 54 gallons. So if we sum this up, that's what? 179 gallons per household per day. Let us not forget that this 179 gallons is gray water, and it has no fecal material, nor does it have anything that is highly hazardous. But normally, what do we do with that? It just goes and combines with black water. It goes to sewage. Well, that is something that we should think about, right? Because 179 gallons, to put that in perspective, for the sake of our mathematics here, let's just raise it up to 180 for ease in doing the calculations. So to put this in perspective, let's think about the 5-gallon bucket. That's very common. You can buy this in Walmart. You can buy this in Lowe's. We use this a lot for various purposes. Almost everybody's familiar with the volume of this thing. Well, 180 gallons, you divide that by 5-gallon buckets. How many 5-gallon buckets are we talking about here? Oh my goodness, we're talking about 36 of those. 36 gallons again. And then we're talking about just one household here, right? And that's one day. One day, 180 gallons or 179 gallons. That's the amount of water that is actually considered as gray water. All right, so that is if we consider we as the household. So let's talk about another we. Let's consider we as the state. Now it gets more interesting because, well, I checked the Census Bureau in 2019. It says that we have 1,749,464 houses in Oklahoma. And based on our earlier mathematics, how much of gray water does each house produce? Again, 179 gallons, right? And if we multiply that with 1,000, sorry, I keep saying 1,000, 1,749,464 homes in Oklahoma, all right, that gives us a very large value of 313 million gallons. And it's just one day for the entire state. You might argue that this might be an overestimation, but hey, it's nice to see put some numbers to get so that we get a good perspective of it. Let me remind us again that this right here, 313 million gallons of water per day, it doesn't have any fecal material in it, doesn't have any highly hazardous substance, yet we just dispose that along with black water. Now, where does this water come from, by the way? Just so we know, right? And we want to remind ourselves that 313 million gallons of gray water, most of it actually comes from surface water bodies or reservoirs, lakes. For example, for the city of Stillwater, I think we get our lake from, we get our water from Lake Blackwell. So we get it from surface water bodies. 56% of this in the state of Oklahoma comes from surface water bodies. But I want to emphasize that the other 44%, or 138 million gallons, actually comes from the groundwater. Well, what's the difference? Well, the surface water bodies like lakes and reservoirs, it's easy to replenish water in that. So for example, if you go to Lake Blackwell in the summer, the water level goes slow. But if you get a big rain event, or a 2-inch rain, for example, well, the water in the lake is up to what is ideal. But if you source water from the groundwater, for example, in western side of Oklahoma, we get our water from an aquifer called the Ogallala Aquifer. Well, the replenishment of water from these groundwater resources takes years and decades, even centuries. So if we get water from the groundwater, we're essentially mining water. So we get water right there from the groundwater, is good quality. And then we use that to wash a handkerchief or a shirt. Then we label it as, and after that, we just label it as wastewater. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, that should not be the case. We should do our best to promote this technology. I'm guilty. I don't have a gray water system in my house. I wish I do. I wish I do. Okay. So the next question is, do we have the technology to reutilize gray water? Well, we do. Actually, the technology about gray water collection, reuse, and of course, treatment, it's a mature technology. And just to show you a more complicated way of how this setup works is that you could have the plumbing system actually customized to collect the gray water in your house. Of course, the water that comes from toilets right here, from the kitchen sink, and of course the dish dryer, a washer rather, it goes to the toilet. They're called black water. But the water that comes from our washers, clothes washers, and the sinks in there, bathtub sinks, and of course, and the shower, hey, they could be channeled in a different set of plumbing into a collection tank. And of course, a lot of these are proprietary. A lot of these systems are proprietary. There could be pre-processing within the tank or prior to going into the tank. And there are also pre-processing or a treatment of the water before they are actually dispersed of, not disposed, but dispersed of into the yard as irrigation water. And in some areas, they could even be used to wash cars. Why not? And of course, to flush toilets. So this is a mature technology. I don't know why or for certain why the utilization of gray water and the inclusion of this into our plumbing system in houses is not very common, but just to be clear, it's up there. Right. The water that we're dealing here, of course, is not clean water. I would not refer to it as wastewater. I was just going to use it as I'm just going to consider that as used water. And I think we should do that. We should not label water that could still be used as wastewater, because there's a negative connotation to waste. It is something that needs to be disposed. Now, used water is something that we could still reuse And of course, it is something that could just be dispersed. So I'm there. I want to refer gray water to be just used water, but it's not safe water. It's not safe potable water, of course, never safe for drinking, even for our pets. Could not be used for domestic uses like, of course, dishwashing, food preparation, cooking, irrigation, even irrigation for food that are eaten raw, so or leafy vegetables. They could, however, be used for these purposes like flushing of toilets, irrigation of lawns and irrigation of gardens. It's going to be spring soon, or it is already spring, and we are already thinking of gardens, right? It could be when dispersed in our lawns and our gardens, we could use spray irrigation, just your normal sprinkler irrigation. And of course, we can use subsurface drip. We probably all are familiar with surface irrigation. We see that a lot in a lot of houses. But just to show what surface drip is that in this picture right here, we have a walkway in the back of a house, and there are areas start there that they want to put sod or grass. But before they place grass and soil in here and there, they actually have this drip line. So take note of the color of those drip lines. Those are actually purple. So those holes, those drip lines have holes, and they are pressure compensated holes, which allows the equal distribution of water. So imagine this to be connected to a gray water system. All right, why is it not safe? Why is it not safe? Because it has still contaminants in it. Well, for example, what's in gray water? Well, let's look at the biologicals, organisms that are in it. So I want to use this paper by Biotengta, Pepra, and others in 2018. They actually gathered information from various studies, and these are the things, not things, but microbes that they were reported to be isolated from gray water. There could be fecal coliforms in there. These are water that could come from showers, and we could use water that comes from washers, and it could have some fecal material in it. Pseudomonas is a fairly common microorganism, but staph is, what is staph? Staphylococcus, that is actually pathogenic. Salmonella typhi, particularly in this paper, was reported that is actually, of course, this is not, you will not find this in all gray water. These are just examples of what have been isolated. Salmonella typhi causes typhoid fever, and of course, salmonella. So there are some microorganisms in it. It is used water. So let's be careful. We need to handle this water properly and carefully because there's some risk associated with exposure to this water. That's the biology. Let's talk about the chemistry. All right. So chemistry, these are from the same paper, gathered data from across different countries. pH is usually from slightly acidic of 6 all the way to slightly basic, but long and short, they're right around circumneutral. Some of these papers had measured electrical conductivity, which is a measure of salinity. Look at that. Some are actually saline. I guess the borderline for water to become saline is, I think it's 30 microsiemens per meter. So this is kind of saline water over there. Total suspended solids. There's a lot of suspended solids, right? BODs, that refers to organics that are in the water that needs to be oxidized by living organisms. So these are actually organic compounds in them, right? Some reported chlorine in it, so it's related to a number of salts. Of course, oil, and I want to point out nitrate, which is nitrate is of course a plant nutrient, plant available form of nitrogen, and the water quality limit for nitrogen is actually 10 megagrams per liter, or 10 ppm, and for most of it they have actually exceeded the water quality limit. Total phosphorus, look at these levels. I think the water quality limit, depending upon the purpose, is 0.1 megagrams per liter. So it's not totally clean water. It doesn't have any hazardous materials in it, very toxic materials, but there's some in there that we need to be careful of. Okay. So if this water has something in it, some contaminants in it, what are the things that could be done to somehow partially treat it before we apply it to our yards, before we use it to wash cars, for example, or in some instances, even bring it back to the house to flush toilets? Well, treatment of gray water would include flotation and separation of solids. So wastewater would be routed using a plumbing system, right? And it goes to a holding tank. And in the holding tank, of course, the water in there is kind of still. So what happens is that less dense material could float, and that would include grease, for example, and oils, they would float. If they're solids, they would float. And of course, the heavier substances could sink, so sedimentation. Of course, after that, the effluents, we have the ones that float at the top, the sediments or solids at the middle, and then you have the effluent right around the used water at the middle. They could, in some technologies and some companies that apply that install this, they route it through a filtering system. Usually sand filters are very common, or they can use synthetic or organic filters. An example of an organic filter would be wood chips, for example. If the water is brought back into the house or surface applied, it needs to be disinfected. I'm just borrowing, regulations in Oklahoma related to on-site septic systems. If it's sprayed in the surface, I think it's prudent that they have to be disinfected. Or if they're brought back to the house, they have to be disinfected. Common disinfection methods include chlorination and UV disinfection. These are mature technologies as well. Again, if they're brought to the house, they have to be, or surface applied, they have to be disinfected. Next question are about the rules. Are there rules that govern the use or reuse of gray water? Of course there are, and let's just see this table. This basically outlines the different states and where they are in terms of gray water regulation. Oklahoma is over here. We actually allow reclamation of the gray water. However, we define as a state, we define gray water as wastewater, and we will go to that definition later on. We have 2 state statutes that regulates the use of gray water. State Statute 27A, 2-6, 107, and 108. So the first one is about definitions. The other one is about permits and allowed use. The regulating entity is the Oklahoma DEQ, or the Department of Environmental Quality. They are also the entity that would levy fines if somebody, of course, don't follow the rules. All right, so focusing on this first statute in here, which refers to definitions, this is how we define gray water in the state of Oklahoma. Gray water means untreated household wastewater. As I mentioned before, in our definition, we consider gray water in the state as wastewater. So means untreated household wastewater that has not come in contact with toilet water, and this includes the following: water from bathtub, shower, wash basins, clothes washing machines, and of course, laundry tubs. Is that all? Of course not, right? Because untreated municipal wastewater, limited to, of course, wastewater captured from splash pads. We have a lot of that, and they will be used in the summer. Kids love to play in it. So water from municipal splash pods and water used by fire departments for cleaning equipment and vehicles, and that could be quite substantial. So if these are the ones that are included in our definition of gray water, what are not included? The following shall not be included: wastewater from sinks and kitchens, kitchen dishwashers. No, not included in the definition for the state of Oklahoma. Laundry water from the washing of materials that are soiled with human excreta, such as diapers. So that's our definitions, right? Another thing that I want to add in this statute 107 is that the water that collected from splash pods, and I think this is the splash pod from Stillwater right there, they are okay for use in irrigation and land application, even without a DEQ permit, for as long as this is in a municipality or county that has ordinance that at a minimum meets state statutes. So sometimes, there are even conditions where a permit is not required to use this. All right, the question is, what other conditions would allow the use of gray water without a permit? Well, let's go to statute 108 for that. And it says this: the DEQ shall not require a permit for applying less than 250 gallons per day of private residential gray water originating from residences following uses. And let's take note of this: household gardening, composting, and landscape irrigation, provided that the resident, right, provides an overflow into sewer system or on-site wastewater treatment and disposal. What do we mean by this? Okay, so if a house is producing 250 gallons or less than 250 gallons, and it has this right here, an overflow system, then they don't have to get a permit from DEQ, all right? So There could be instances that the water could not be applied in the yard because maybe it's raining or something, but the house produces gray water every day. So if it cannot be disposed to the outside, what happens is, according to the rule, it has to have what? An overflow of the excess gray water to the sewer system. What else? Gray water storage tank is covered to restrict access and to eliminate habitat for mosquitoes and other vectors. I think that's self-explanatory. A gray water system is sited outside of floodway. So you might want to ask your city engineer's office or zoning office, for example, to know whether your area, your yard, or where you want to dispose of groundwater is actually within the floodway. Gray water is vertically separated at least 5 feet above the groundwater table. Rick's going to explain that in the next slide. And gray water pressure piping is clearly identified as a non-potable water conduit. So let me explain that's number 4 first. So if this is your soil, a cross-section of your soil, that's the surface, right? Here is the parent material of your soil. And if you have, for example, drip lines, let's say, hey, that's your drip line, right? Colored purple. And it says that if you're producing less than 250 gallons of wastewater and that drip line is at least 5 feet in terms of vertical distance to the seasonal high water table right here, right? That's your water table. And if that is at least 5 feet, hey, no need for a permit. And also about pipes. Have you seen purple pipes? Purple pipes, this is this, right? Purple drip lines, that's such as this. It means that those are actually the water that passes through it. Those are non-potable water, right? They're actually wastewater. All right, number 6, we have, I guess 12 of this. So we gotta hurry up. Gray water is used on the site where it is generated and does not run off property lines. So you cannot just make arrangements with your neighbor that, hey, I'm going to use the gray water in your property. No, it has to be within the site or property that it's generated. Applied in a manner that minimizes the potential for contact with people and domestic pests. Again, there are going to be contaminants in this water. We got to be careful. Ponding is prohibited. So ponding would be prohibited if what? We actually regulate the application of the gray water in our backyards. So the properties of the soil play a part. The area of your backyard where you apply gray water would play a significant role in prohibiting or and of course preventing ponding. Gray water is not sprayed. It cannot be sprayed, right? So when I'm if it says it cannot be sprayed, which means that if you want to spray it, you need a permit. Okay. Number 10, not discharged to a waterway. That is, I guess that makes sense, right? And self-explanatory and important, by the way. 11, used within municipalities or counties that complies with all applicable ordinances enacted or pursuant to law. And lastly, a gray water storage system which complies with the provisions of the law. Okay. So, hey, long and short, it's allowed in Oklahoma. We have certain rules that govern it. So, hey, let's be familiar with the laws first and make inquiries in our towns and municipalities in our county if we have certain regulations that govern the use and distribution, of course, of gray water. Some take-home points. I've talked about a lot of things today, but I want to emphasize that reutilizing gray water will save us a lot of water. Again, based on the math that we did earlier, around 180 gallons of gray water per household per day. That's a lot of water. Second, gray water has chemical and microbial contaminants in it, and we would need to handle it carefully because we don't want to be sick or we don't want to be exposed to these contaminants. And gray water in Oklahoma, at least, includes the following: water from bathtubs, showers, wash basins, clothes washing machines, and laundry tubs, including water from municipal splash pads and water that is used by fire departments for cleaning equipment. And just to remind, there are rules that govern this in the state of Oklahoma. You can Google these statutes right here, 27A, 2-6-107 and 108. This is my contact information right here, my first and last name at okstate.edu, or you can use OSU septic water at okstate.edu if we need to continue the conversation after this presentation. This is, by the way, here, the phone number of the Oklahoma DEQ Environmental Complaints and Local Services. And this is, I think they do the regulation they're the regulating entity for gray water in the state. With that, I'd like to say thank you. And if there are questions, I'd be glad to address them at this point.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abbott. That was very educational, and it's also a very good. It's doable.
I think it's doable.
Yeah, the technology's there. So anyway, that was good. We do have a question, and this may be something that we have to pass along, but Jennifer said, my mid-century home has plumbing embedded in the slab. Is there a good solution for retrofitting a home like this?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry. I wish I have, but let me just comment that the gray water systems don't have to be as complicated as the one in the picture that I've shown. The gray water system that I actually saw from a friend in the West, I think I went to Arizona, and when somebody had this, it's as simple as what they did was that they just routed the water from their washer into a tank, and then basically just collected it, passed it through a filtering system, and used it to irrigate their lawns. So I think in your case, it's difficult. You would need somebody more knowledgeable about plumbing and engineering, and renovating a house to have a more advanced and automatic gray water system. But it doesn't have to be always like that. I'm sorry. I wish I have an answer to that. That's actually a very good question. And Brenda, I'm actually thinking of making preparing an extension bulletin related to this. I think this is going to address a lot of questions for people.
That'd be good. Appreciate it. And thank you to everyone that came today, and especially for our panelists, because it was very informative. I really appreciate you taking the time in your lunch hour to join us. And so both to Jordan and Dr. Abbott, I want to say thank you. And also to everyone that came, thank you. And hopefully you've got some good things to think about and pursue. So anyway, I guess with that, we can wrap up. And again, thank you for the City of Edmond and their Conservation University for all their good education on how to save water. And this is just one way. So
thank you, Jordan, and thank you, Brenda, for getting this together.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Dr. Abbott. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.